Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time, a Wave original presented by Prize Picks. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. It is that time of week where we have a guest join us, coming to us live from D.C. and the athletic David Aldridge. What's going on, sir?
Bo, what's up, my man? How are you?
Hey, man, I think it's really, really basketball season now. Not that it wasn't basketball season before, but now we don't have to be distracted by other things. Like we can really lock in. And see, you're in an interesting place because I always say this, and I've been thinking for the last 15 years that I would have to replace this line, but it hasn't happened, where I say my age, and now my age is 44. I'm 44 years old, and the Wizards haven't won 50 games in my life. But you guys actually had a football season to watch, only to come over for this Wizards. Are these worse than the ones where JaVale McGee was running the wrong way that year?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, yes, in terms of the actual on-court product, like they're terrible and they lose all the time. But at least there's a plan, Bo. I can live with a plan. Like you tell me this is what we're going to try to do. I can agree with it or I can disagree with it, but I can at least say, well, at least they got a plan. They're not just meandering from season to season like they've been doing for most of the last 50 years, not with no real design on how are we going to be a championship team in the next 5 years? What are we going to do to build towards that instead of what they've been doing, which is how can we win 39 games and sneak into the playoffs? That's been their modus operandi for most of the last 50 years. It's terrible. It's boring. And it doesn't get you anywhere close to being a contender. And they just had too many years where management and ownership were just cool with winning 39 games and sneaking into the playoffs. If you're going to do that, you have to tell the people that pay for the tickets and the parking and the concessions, you have to tell them that's what your plan is. You have to tell them, our goal is to win 39 games this year and sneak into the playoffs. That's what we're trying to do. And if we do that, we've had a successful season. And then at least the person that pays for the tickets knows what the deal is. And you're not scamming them on, well, we're always just trying to win a championship. No, you're not. Stop it. You ain't doing nothing to win a championship. So at least this is a plan, which is we're going to suck until we get enough good young players to try and make a run at this thing in the next 5 or 6 years. Okay. It's not a great plan. It's a dangerous plan because it may not work, but at least it's a plan. At least it's something that you are devoting resources and time to in a way that makes sense. You're going to trade every veteran you can at the trade deadline, get as many draft picks as you can so that in the next 3 or 4 drafts, you get as many shots at this thing as possible.
Am I reading this correctly? And Monday night was the first time that they held an opponent to under 100 points?
Yeah. But I mean, that's the NBA, Bo. I ain't mad at them for that. Ain't nobody trying to guard nobody in this league.
I'll say this. I'll just say this. It wouldn't have been the first time somebody held them to under 100 points.
Right. That's right.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah. But no, their best players are either in college or in their senior year of high school. That's where their best players are right now. So that's the goal, is to get a top 3 pick this year, because this is I won't say it's a 3-player draft. That's a little cynical. The best 3 players are clear in terms of NBA potential. When you look at them, and it's Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. I mean, it's not that Edgecombe's not a good player. He is a good player. He's got a chance to be a really good player. But those 3 have separated themselves. So the Wizards are trying to get one of those 3 players, and then they want to try to do it again next year. Now, it's difficult. It's the lottery. You have no control over it. You could lose. You could pick 5th, but at least you're giving yourself the best chance at the best young players coming in.
So with those 3 players, they're so interesting to me because they are not at all the same, right? Like when I think of a 3-player draft, I think of one that honestly I didn't remember in real time. But when you think about it, it's almost the model of the 3-player draft. James Worthy, Terry Cummins, and Dominique Wilkins going 1, 2, 3, and 82.
Right.
And where it's fair to ask, if each of them had gone to if Terry Cummins or Dominique had gone to the Lakers, they probably become some form or fashion of what James Worthy was.
They become Hall of Famers too, right?
On the Hawks, right? Yeah. It probably goes that same way.
Yeah.
But they were very similar players, right? They were all big four, like prototypical, futuristic big forwards with small forward games.
Yeah.
That's what they were.
Yeah.
These are 3 completely different dudes
Yes.
that you got here. Where Cooper Flagg is interesting because he's so good, but I'm not saying he's Kyle Anderson. But he is moving at a different pace than the rest of them. Dylan Harper, just big giant point guard, right?
Yeah.
And then that Ace Bailey, who I don't know what all he does, but I know the one thing he does, and it is look incredible. If you're 18 years old and we call you Ace, you have earned this somewhere along the way.
Exactly. Ball goes into the basket with Ace Bailey. That's what he does. Ball, He puts ball in basket. That's what he does at a very, very efficient 3-level way. Right. And you're right. They are 3 completely different players. And any one of those 3 would be the best player on the Wizards by a factor of 3,000 when they get to the team. so that's what you're building toward. But yeah, I mean, look, Cooper Flag, everybody sees it. You watch it. Like, come on, this kid can play, man. Now, let's not be ridiculous about this. This kid is a big time basketball player, talent, who can score, who can rebound, who can defend. Who runs the floor every possession, who's a very good passer. Dylan Harper is insanely good and efficient. Like, he gets, like all great scorers and ball handlers, you can't stop him from getting where he wants to go. He's going to get to his spot, and he's going to shoot, and he's going to make it. And that's what's going to happen. And he's 215 pounds as a point guard already, so like, he's got size. And I have a bias, Bo, towards guys whose dads played in NBA, because I just think they've been in the life for so long. They just get it. They understand it. They know what it's like. They know the good and the bad of it. I just think that they're more attuned to coming into the NBA because they've been around the NBA for so long. So I think that factors in with Dylan. And like I said with Ace, he's a bucket, man. He's just a bucket. He's 6'10" and a bucket. Like, is he going to be like Kevin Durant bucket? Probably not, but he's going to be pretty good. Like, he might be a Chris Bosh bucket. Okay, Chris Bosh had a really good career. Like, ain't nothing wrong with being Chris Bosh. You know what I'm saying? So any one of those guys is going to have the best chance to kind of be a transformative player, whether it's the Wizards or somebody else.
Yeah, like, you get Chris Bosh at the number 3 pick in the draft. And in fairness, Chris Bosh, I think, went 4th in his draft.
Yeah, exactly.
But you get Chris Bosh at number 3.
One of the greatest drafts of all time,
right. And exceeded what is reasonable to expect of the 4th pick in the draft. Like, one thing I think that people lose sight of is what is reasonable to expect at every pick in the draft. Right. And so if Ace Bailey is a 5-time All-Star at the number 3 pick in the draft, you've done great. The question with a dude like him is whether he is going to be the sort of player who frustrates you, right? Like, if his type of good is the good that always makes you think there's something else on the other side. Because what we don't have a great handle on is when you ask him to do something other than just get a bucket, because we are in an era that does not appreciate that in the way that we used to.
Correct.
You could decide whether that's for better or worse, but just the idea that I'm here to score, what else? I'm here to score. If that's all he does, how do we ultimately feel about it? That becomes the question.
Fair. That's a fair question. And you don't know, because you don't know where he's going and what they value and those sorts of things. So you don't know. You'd like to think that over the course of somebody's career, they get a little proficient at something else, whatever it is, rebounding, guarding people, something. Like, find something else that you can do besides score and lean into that. But you don't know. You don't know. But I will bet that Ace Bailey will become such a good scorer that it really won't matter what else he does, because he's just so good at scoring, and he's so good at finding spots on the floor where he can elevate and use his length and size, and he scores at all 3 levels. So, I mean, I just think he's going to be a wildly, wildly good basketball player. He may be hurt by going to a really bad team that plays no defense whatsoever, and you get caught in those bad habits, and that would not be ideal for him. You'd like to hope that he'll go to a team where they try to guard people and they try to, understand concepts and talking and things like that are important to defending in this era. And so that he's not just completely locked into, I just do one thing and just give me the rock and I'll rest at the other end. You don't want that.
So you made an interesting point about Dylan Harper. For people who don't know, Ron Harper, who I think of as of the Cavs or Clippers, though there was that whole three-peat situation. But I think that's an important distinction, because I think if you watch Ron Harper play for those Bulls, you don't really have a great understanding of what was possible.
Ron's career was completely different after his knee injury. He was just a completely different player.
And this is a different era of technology, right? Yes. Different biotech era on what they could do after your knee injury. Ron Harper was a monster.
before he got hurt. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Ron could go now.
Oh man, just a wildly athletic 6'6" 2 guard, which I would say, I almost said at a time where that wasn't common, but the time has never come where the 6'6" 2 guard is common, right? Like it is
not like that.
We have not reached a point where it's just like, oh yeah, he's 6'6". No. That's what he was doing for you in 1986, 1987. But what I think is interesting when you talk about him being the son of an NBA player, Ron Harper's 61 years old, which is to say, I don't know how much Dylan Harper grew up in the life of the NBA, but maybe in a good way. Your pops had all the bread in the world to be there and work with you on your game, right? Like to give a different level of care than you just happen to be in arenas.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, you look at Steph Curry, you look at Jalen Brunson. Like, I just think I think this is repeatable. You can see this over and over and over again. Like guys that I just think when you've been around it, you've had a relative, usually your dad, right? Like, and sometimes it's your uncle, but usually it's your dad that was in that life. You just understand that there are certain things you have to do to be a good NBA player. Like there's certain things in terms of preparation, in terms of recovery, all of those things that you have to do. And to have guys like that played a long time also, Del Curry played a long time in the NBA. Ron Harper played a long time in the NBA. Rick Brunson played a long time in the NBA. They weren't like they were in the game for like a minute. They had a cup of coffee, with the Spurs and then they were done. No, they played 10 years in the league. So to play 10 years in the NBA, you have to understand what being professional is about. And so I think that they instilled that in their kids. And if the kid has any ability, you marry that ability with understanding work ethic, I think you have a chance to have something special. And it's not a surprise to me. I mean, Steph, I didn't think Steph was going to do this, but I thought he would have a good career as a pro. It's not a surprise to me that these guys tend to flourish because they've been immersed in it for so long. I think they learn more good habits than bad ones. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I think there's literally one person on earth who thought Steph was going to be as good as he was, and he wears number 30 for the Golden State Warriors. Right. I don't think his mom thought this. Like I don't think anybody has ever been able to play the nobody believed in me card quite like Steph Curry can. As someone who has found him, who's always felt he was actually very complimentary and really into Steph, but also didn't think it was this. At every turn, like, nope, didn't quite think it was this, though. And no, it was that.
Bo, I said the day he was drafted, I said, boy, I hope he has as good a career as his dad did. You know what I mean? Like, that was my expectation for Steph Curry, that he might have a career as good as his dad, who was a really good sixth man in the NBA for a number of years for a lot of teams. That's what I thought his ceiling was, and I'm a dope. So.
No, I gotta say, I was in the building in 2008, those first two rounds of the tournament. I was there for that. It saved my career in some ways because I was like, oh, I gotta stay around this, right? And even I at every point was like, well, I think he'll be all right. Yeah, well, I think it'll be okay. Yeah, well, da. And now he's here, and that leads us to a good transition to what's going on in the NBA, because outside of Kevin Durant, Jimmy Butler, to me, is without question the best player he's ever had to play alongside him. And what is happening since Jimmy has gotten there that's unlike prior is they are winning the non-Steph minutes.
Yes.
Jimmy Butler has taken literally himself, you could say fairly, taken teams to 2 NBA finals. He took Minnesota to their first trip to the playoffs in 13 years, right? The Sixers were that crazy bounce away from going to overtime in that game 7 against the Raptors in 2019. And now Steph's got that dude to lean on. Draymond has somebody to play with who's just as crazy as him. They look like a different team.
Completely different team. I would say I'll push back a little bit, Bo. I think pre-injury Klay Thompson was pretty damn good.
but he wasn't this. He wasn't this.
He wasn't the same type of dude, but in terms of damn, he can go get some buckets and kill us. Yeah, he could do that. Like, he had a different gear. But I get your point. Like, Jimmy has injected life into that team. They were dead in the water. They were talking to, the talk of teams that knew that they had shot their shot and they were finished. They weren't talking about competing anymore for championships. And then all of a sudden, this dude comes in and everything looks different now because he's got that kind of game and that kind of swag and all of those things, I'm still not convinced that they're going to just roll through the West and get back to the finals. But I'll say this, you don't want Steph Curry to think he actually can win this thing now. You know what I mean? You don't want that. You don't want that if you OKC or Denver or anybody else or Memphis or any of those teams at the top of the West. You don't want him actually committing himself to this now because you know what he can do when he actually commits himself. And to your point, has a guy that can say, okay, Steph, I got this. Go sit down for 7 minutes and catch a blow. I got this for the next few minutes. And Jimmy can do that. Like Jimmy's got that kind of game.
I have always felt, and I think even with the modern game, that this still holds, that once you get to the playoffs, and what becomes most important is how many dudes do you have that can go get a bucket? And that does not mean how many guys do you have who are capable of scoring, right? So, like, I think that's a distinction that's important with Klay Thompson, where, yes, Klay Thompson can give you a 30-something point second half or something like that. But Klay Thompson being like, don't worry, boys, I'm going to go get this bucket right fast. It's not his game. The Warriors have two of them now, like two incredibly tested ones who play the game in entirely different ways. Like, I'm going to go get us a bucket. We need a bucket right now, right? This 8-2 run, it needs to stop, and it's going to stop because I'm going to go get us a bucket. They got two of them.
Yeah, no, they do. They do. And again, that swag is very important. Like, the swag is belief. That's all it is. It's not, when I say swag, I don't mean like braggadocio and nonsense. I mean a guy that actually makes you believe, oh, hell, we're going to win this game because this guy's here, you know, like, and so Jimmy has brought that kind of athletic arrogance. And you have to, I say this all the time, Bo, it's the NBA. You have to be arrogant to play in the NBA because you're playing against killers, man. Like, these guys will destroy you if you don't have that kind of arrogance, you know, and you got to believe you're the best guy on the floor. And Jimmy believes and has believed for the last 12 years, I'm the baddest dude on this court. He believes it. Like, he really does believe it, you know? So that goes a long way when you can back it up the way he's backed it up the last few years in playoffs.
You know, the West is interesting. And I just thought about it in this way. And I'm curious what you think about this. But it feels like, and I'm saying this about the West, this may actually be a description of the entire league with the exception of the Celtics. Even with teams like Cleveland, where we're seeing what they're doing, right? Their crazy record they have. Oklahoma City, the crazy record they have. Or even Memphis, who isn't as good or that high up. They're still, like, you know, third in the West, looking at who the best teams are. It feels like every team in the league is either over the hill or under it, right? That they're either past their primes or they haven't reached that place. And it's odd to be in a league where it doesn't feel like you've got, like, obviously Denver's won a championship. They're battle tested. You could say this about, say, Milwaukee, but this doesn't at all feel like the same team that they had in 21. It doesn't at all feel like the same team the Warriors had in 22. It is a worlds different team that the Lakers had than in 20, right? So it's not like these teams that have been slugging it out for years. You look at Oklahoma City, and I think a lot of people just say to themselves, nah, you got to lose more before you get there. And then you look at a team like the Clippers, and you're like, oh, man, I think they missed their chance. But it really doesn't feel like for anybody other than Boston where you're like, yeah, it's time.
Yeah, no, that's what's great about this year to me, Bo, is other than the Celtics, and I mean, it's the same team in Denver, but it feels different. Maybe that's because KCP's not there and Bruce Brown's not there anymore. It doesn't feel like the same team. Like, they're depending on a lot of younger guys that really haven't been there in those kind of moments. So to me, Boston's the only team in the league where you can go, well, Boston's a favorite because they've done this before. It's the same group coming back. They've been in this cauldron for several years. They know what they're doing. Everybody else, and this is not a slight on Cleveland or OKC, they got great young teams, terrific young teams, but they haven't won anything yet. Like, you know, Orlando hasn't won anything yet. Like, Memphis hasn't won anything yet. You know, like, so until they get on that stage and win 2 rounds and get in the conference finals, how can you really say that they're a threat? Like, they haven't proven it yet. Like, they will. Ultimately, 1 or 2 of them will break through and prove it, and then they'll be on a different level. But they haven't done it yet. And so, to your point earlier, if I'm Golden State, I'm like, I ain't afraid to play Oklahoma City in the playoffs. We've won championships. They ain't won nothing. You know, let's go. You know, so they're not going to be afraid to go play them or Memphis or, you know, any of the teams that are up at the top. And so that, to me, is what makes this upcoming playoffs really intriguing, because it's young talent that's got to figure out how to win at the next level. They got the regular season down. They know how to kill in the regular season. Playoffs are different, and you got to figure out, all right, how do we win a playoff series against a good team, against a well-coached team? You know what I mean? Like you got to. It's a different level. It's a different level of preparation. It's a different level of detail. All of it, and you got to go through it to figure that out.
I think how you feel about Denver is how you feel about this incarnation of Jamal Murray, right?
Yeah,
Because
right.
I think what we learned about that championship team versus this one was Jokic still has not played with another player who made the All-Star team like with him. That still
Yeah.
hasn't happened. He, to me, is by far the best player in the NBA. And that depth was necessary to allow that greatness to account for the fact that they didn't really have, like, Murray's the number 2 in their 2-man game and in a pick and roll, all that stuff. Okay, cool. But you'd like your second best player to at least have been good enough to make an All-Star game at some point. Yeah. Without that depth, man, it's tough on them when Jokic is not.
They got very small margin for error, very small. Like it's literally, is Michael Porter's back all right today? That's their margin for error. You know what I mean? Like that's where they're living right now. So they don't have any margin for error. Like the depth that you mentioned again, KCP and Bruce Brown. They had vets. That had been through some wars. KCP had won a chip with the Lakers. You know what I mean? Like, so they had guys that weren't phased by the big moments in the postseason, that played well in the postseason. And just having Bruce Brown as your backup point guard just changes everything. You know what I mean? Like, Westbrook's having a great year for them. Don't get me wrong. Russell's having a really good year for him. But, Bruce was a two-way player, like played at both ends and did some really good things for them. So it's different. That doesn't mean they couldn't go on a run. It just means if they don't have everything working perfectly, including young guys giving them productive minutes off the bench, boy, it's hard. It's going to be hard for them to win. Now, Jokic is so good, it may not matter. It may not matter if Murray gives them anything. And I think he's played much better of late, but they don't have the margin of error they had a couple of years ago.
Now, where are you on Memphis? Because I'm not personally sure. Like, that year they were good. Everything went haywire, and they were at the part of destroying themselves in the playoffs. So I feel like we never even got a true handle on how good, like what the baseline was for what this unit could be. And now this year, they're third in the West, but. I feel like everything with them is just a but.
Yeah, I mean, Ja's been in and out of the lineup. Like you part of me goes, well, they're third in the West, and Ja hasn't really been there a whole, as much as you would want him to be. It's not like Ja's having an MVP season. You know what I mean? Like, so they're winning games without their best player really kind of controlling things. Like, OKC, SGA, who the best. SGA shows up every night and gets 35 every night. You know what I'm saying? So it's different. So you think, well, maybe Memphis has another gear if Ja gets healthy and is ready to rock in the playoffs, so you think about that, but I keep coming back to, but I haven't seen this group do that together yet. I haven't seen this group with Jaren Jackson and Bane and Ja and now Santi Aldama and guys like that. Like I'm intrigued by their young guys and what they've been able to do, but young guys don't usually keep doing this in the playoffs. They just don't. Just look it up. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. So the guys that are giving them great minutes in the regular season, I need to see them do that in the postseason. And if they do that, then Memphis has a different gear. They have another ceiling. But I'm not quite convinced yet because I haven't seen this group with these leaders, win multiple 7-game series to get to conference semifinals and finals. I've seen them put up good fights and lose. Now that's not a criticism. That's what I've seen over the last few years with this group. Now you get calluses, you get better, you get more mature. All of those things are possible. So Memphis could go on a roll here, but I haven't seen them do it yet. I need to see them do it first.
And once again, everybody feels over the hill or under it. Like that's the thing with the Rockets. The Rockets feel squarely under the hill. And my thing with the Rockets, I am largely a believer in Ime and how good a coach Ime is. But I sure did watch Ime leave a team, and they went and got it done, and it was okay. And I cannot forget that year that Ime got them to the finals, boy, they almost got walked down by the Heat as they would blow leads and just be like, what is happening here? What are you guys doing? I'm so curious to see this team when they get to the postseason. As a Ahmed Thompson believer,
Yeah.
I am very curious to see how this goes. But again, like you say, it's the calluses. They don't have any of those.
They have none. It's just different, Bo. The playoffs are different, man. Like they're completely different. Like it's just everything's different, and so it's just not normal for a team that's never done it. And that's why the Warriors run is so intriguing. One of the many reasons, but they just kind of came out of nowhere and said, "No, we're the best team in the league now. We're the best team in the world now." Like, really? You are? Yeah. We'll show you. And they did, and that's not normal for somebody to just kind of come out of the blue like that. So what intrigues me about Houston is that they really are a defense first team. And I think other teams play good defense, but it's not really their personality, right? You know what I mean? Like, OKC's a really good defensive team. They're an excellent defensive team. I think they're number one defensive rating. But their identity is SGA getting buckets. That's their identity. You know what I mean? Like Memphis's identity is Ja yamming on somebody. That's their identity, or throwing a lob to somebody. But I think Houston's identity is getting stops. You know what I mean? Like using that length to just like disrupt offenses and make them miserable. And that can take you somewhere in the postseason. You can win games in the playoffs if you play great defense every night. And so I'm intrigued. I want to see it because you do have to score some, even in the playoffs. So I'm intrigued to see where do they go for their buckets when they got to get one. They got to have it in a 2-point game in game 4 of a playoff series. Who are they running the play for? I want to see that. Can they do it?
I know who they're running the play for. They're running the play for Ahmed. That's who they're running the play for. Like, I think if they handled this season correctly, it will have been a building action to get yourself to that place, because he's that guy. I mean, I guess I don't have a real number 2 answer. I guess you could say you're running it for Sengun, but nah, you're not going to do that.
Probably not. You're right, because I can double Sengun. As good as he is, I can double him and get the ball out of his hands. So yeah, I'm curious to see. Maybe it is Amen. You might be right. And so but I need to see that in the postseason. I need to see, all right, what do you do in crunch time? And do you execute it well enough to win offensively? Do you get the shot you want? Whether it goes in or not is up to the basketball gods, but do you get the shot you want in a clutch situation? That's what I have to see this team do.
All right, coming up next, I guess there's one other team in the West we're going to talk about. Want to guess who they are? Now that the NBA All-Star Game has come and gone, the season is starting to heat up, which means you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite teams only on Prize Picks. You can make a Prize Picks lineup with NBA or even college basketball in as little as 60 seconds. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. But rather than hearing it from me, let's hear from an expert picker. What's going on, Sean? How those picks going?
There's wins here, there's wins there, but obviously this month hasn't been ideal for my picks, but now I can focus solely on hoops, and with the flex play, I can still cash out if my lineup isn't perfect. Plus, Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money on sports action. Join over 5 million users and sign up today.
There we go. So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. As a small business owner, you don't have the luxury of clocking out early. Your business is on your mind 24/7. So when you're hiring, you need a partner that grinds just as hard as you do. That hiring partner is LinkedIn Jobs. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates that you can manage, all in one place. Now, Sean, what's your experience with LinkedIn like?
For me, when I was looking for work, LinkedIn was super helpful. And now when we're trying to hire staff here at Wave, LinkedIn is our go-to source for finding the best candidates. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. At the end of the day, the most important thing your small business needs is the quality of candidates. And with LinkedIn, you can feel confident that you're getting the best.
Find out why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring today. Find your next great hire at LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Bomani. That's linkedin.com/Bomani to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Shout out to Dash Pass and their members-only deal for the 24-25 NBA season. They swoosh, you save. When any player scores 50 or more points in a game, Dash Pass members save 50% off on an order, up to $10 off. Sign up for Dash Pass and save more all year round with $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees on eligible orders, plus exclusive perks like this one. Use the promo code NBA50 the day after the 50-point game during the 24-25 NBA regular season from noon to midnight. Valid for Dash Pass members only from noon to midnight the day after any player scores 50 points or more in a single game during the 24-25 regular season.
That's right. As a reminder, the offer is live noon to midnight the day after the game, and that is exclusive to Dash Pass members. 50% off one order, up to $10 off. Offer valid from 9 a.m. Pacific time through 11:59 p.m. Pacific time after a 50-point performance in any game during the NBA season on orders placed at participating merchant locations. Valid only in the United States. Maximum value of discount is $10. Discount applies to subtotal only, does not apply to fees, taxes, and gratuity. Not valid for pickup. Limit one person. Not valid for the purchase of alcohol. Fees, taxes, and gratuity still apply. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Use promo code NBA50 to redeem. See further terms and conditions. More at the link below.
All right, we're back on with David Aldridge. We are taping this ahead of the Luka game in LA, which I still say the Luka game in Dallas is the one that's really interesting. The one, yes, exactly. Although, of course, I'm saying this and people will be like, man, you didn't know Luka scored 60 last night. That's always in the cards when I do something like this. But regardless of what happened in that game, because I don't even feel right talking about Dallas, because without Anthony Davis and really, again, without anybody taller than me on the team, I don't know what to say about what they're doing. But the Lakers, This is intriguing. They have one big person, but they have the current version of LeBron James and the current version of Luka Doncic. And it's the first time that we have ever seen a team where LeBron James is the number two. Even if you may have thought that Anthony Davis had become a better player, Anthony Davis never became the true number one of that team. The only way this experiment works is if Luka Doncic is the number one, because truly it's the only thing he knows how to do. Him without the ball in his hands, he is totally useless. Where do you think this goes?
I don't know. I look, they got a chance to be really good because the Lakers at their best, and this is when LeBron was on the ball, is LeBron spraying the ball all over the floor, right? Like LeBron getting the ball to Rui and getting the ball to Reeves and getting, like finding guys where they want to in their spots and they shoot and score and everybody goes nuts. And that wasn't happening anymore. And whether that's because LeBron just wasn't capable of doing that at the level he was doing it before or whatever it was. But Luka, as ball dominant as he is, he's not selfish in the sense that he's hunting shots every time down the floor. He makes the pass. He makes great passes. So he will get you open. Now he's going to shoot it a lot, Bo. Let's not get it twisted. He's going to shoot it a lot. But, he's still going to have 9, 10, 11, 12 assists at the end of most games because he will pass. So it's interesting. I still don't know. I still think, how do they guard Jokic? How do they guard him? Not once.
Even after what you saw Saturday.
That was once. How do you guard him 7 times? 7 times. Or at least 4 times to beat him. You got to beat him 4 times. How do you do it? 4 times with what they have playing center, the guys they have at center. I just don't think they can do it. I don't think they can do it. Now, can they give him a much different and much more competitive series than they gave Denver the last time? Yes. But I still think it's going to be hard for them just because you can't disguise lack of size. At some point in the playoffs, it comes back and it bites you because there's just guys that can dominate a series with their size, whether We know Jokic can, but Şengün can too. You know what I mean? Like, he's that good. Like, he's an all-star player. He can destroy you if you can't guard him. That's a problem. Like, so that's what I'm not quite sure the Lakers are there yet, but they're a lot closer for sure with Luka, because you become so much more efficient offensively. We're going to score 115. If we can just hold them to 113, we win. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be great defensively with Luka, because you just get you become so much more efficient offensively, and your points per possession just go through the roof with this guy, because he's really hard to guard. He's really hard to guard, and he makes it easier for everybody else.
Let me tell you, you said something about Jokic, and my Twitter For You tab gives me a lot of Jokic stuff, right? It is concluded that I'm that kind of guy. It gives me a lot of Jokic stuff, and it gave me some clips of Jokic back in Serbia. And I have to say, man, every time somebody is like, we didn't see it coming, nobody saw it coming, there's always one guy, or like when he first got to Denver, where there were people that were like, oh no, he's the best player. Like, they saw it on day one. I was looking at these clips of him in Serbia looking like he's playing at a high school gym. And I'm like, man, maybe we just have a whole lot of race stuff that we really got to deal with. Because he was out there looking like Jokic. Like, it looked like the same stuff that we see him do right now. Right. And people are like, I don't know. I didn't know if it could happen.
I think it's not so. Look, is race part of it? Yes. But I don't even think I don't think it's all race. I think it's body type too.
Yes.
He looks like a big dumpy guy. Like, he don't look like no athlete.
Right.
And there's been some great reporting over the last couple of years that says when he went to P3 and they tested him, they found out that no, he doesn't do any one thing great physically, but he does everything good physically. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and that's very rare. Even the best jumpers have things that physically they're not very good at, And so when you think about that and you go, well, he doesn't jump. He doesn't jump high, but he jumps well. You know what I mean? Like, he jumps well, and he's got an incredible, he passes at an incredible rate. Like, all of those things, like, but if you just looked at him in a game, you would just say, well, he's just bigger than everybody else. Of course he scored 25. You don't realize how he's scoring the 25 unless you're really paying attention, right? And you really watch him every night. And nobody's watching. I'm sorry. Nobody's watching Serbian basketball every night.
Not
Who's
even the
doing
scouts.
that? Like, there's 3 people, 4 maybe, that are doing it, that are not working in Serbian basketball, but you're not just, in 2012, you're not just saying, I wonder what Serbian game I can get on the satellite tonight. Let me watch Mega Basket and see what they're up to, and I'm going to watch them again tomorrow. Nobody was doing that. So come on. So part of this is body type. Part of it's race. Yes. But I don't think that's really the big driving thing here. And part of it was they drafted him 41st, Bo. It's not like they drafted him.
But that's what I think. How did that happen? Like, that's how I look back at the Serbia stuff. I'm like, man, like, wow. I can see why, like, the scout that found him is like, man, I hope nobody ever looks. I hope nobody gets, like, you need to tell his agent, don't tell nobody else about him. No, you ain't got no best kept secret. You ain't got none of that, right? Like, none. That's the spin. By the way, did you watch the Netflix, the Olympics?
I've seen parts of it. I haven't seen it, the whole thing.
One thing I think worth noting and watching it, and I have notes. It's a lot going on there. Like, I'm not as effusive in the praise of it as everybody else. But anybody who's on the Jokic doesn't even care about basketball program, no. That one goes out the window. Maybe it just sounds like he cares more in Serbian, but it is very clear there is caring going on here.
Yes, no, I was there. I was in Paris, Bo. No, he cared. He cared at a very high level, just like Wemby cared at a very high level. Like, it's different when it's national team. Like, that's different. And I think you get the best versions of these guys because the care factor is so through the roof. And it's at a different level, even with their NBA teams. And that doesn't mean they don't care. I'm not saying they don't care about the NBA. I'm just saying it is different when you put your country's flag on your chest. It's different. It's a different feel. It's a different vibe. And they had it, and the Americans had it. Like, everybody had it. That's why the basketball was so good. It was so compelling. The Germans, Franz Wagner was sobbing after they lost. Like you these guys care about this stuff, and so you need to go to an Olympics and see and listen to the fervor with which these guys talk about playing for their country. Like that's for real, like, so, yeah, no, that he definitely cared for sure.
Now, over to the East. My issue with the Cavs last year was they have tall men who are not big men. And look, their tall men are very good, and Evan Mobley has become an excellent tall man.
Yes.
But it will always feel to me with a team like that, the question is, are you guys sturdy enough?
Yeah.
Right? Whereas like, well, you two boys got to deal with Giannis in the second round. Are you sturdy enough to handle that? But otherwise, they're walking through the league, man.
Yeah.
They're just walking through.
Well, they're, getting DeAndre Hunter is just a huge deal for them. I think that's a huge deal for them because, to your point, yes, they're very good. They've been great in the regular season, and now you got to guard Giannis, and now you got to guard Jason Tatum. Like you got to guard Banchero. Now you got to guard these guys. Now how are you going to do that? And they didn't have an answer. Now they have one. Now we'll see if he holds up physically. He's been hurt a lot in his career, but was having a great year for the Hawks. He's 6'8", he's 230. He's got the size to make those guys have to work, and that's all you can ask. Make them work for it. Make them inefficient. They're going to get 27 points. They're going to get 32 points. Just make them inefficient when they do so. Make them have to take a lot of shots to get those points. And now they have a real answer that they can throw at guys, and so that's what's intriguing to me about Cleveland. Now, again, just like I said about Memphis, just like I said about OKC, this group of Cavaliers has won exactly one playoff series. And it was against another team, another young team that hadn't gone anywhere and done anything. And it took them 7 games to do that. They haven't done it yet, but we have to see them do it. We have to see, does Mobley's handle hold up in a 7-game series against a real defensive team that really can get into you? Even a Miami, if they get in, like, Miami going to guard you now. They may not be able to score very much, but they're going to guard you, so we got to see that hold up. Is this playmaking? Is decision making? Does that all hold up over 7 games against a Milwaukee, against a Boston in the second round? If it winds up that way, and even in a conference final, does it hold up? So they're in the prove it stage too, and this is where you want to get to. Like, you want to be able to say, okay, we got to prove it now. But we think we have, with 3 All-Stars and some really good role players, we think we got a shot at this thing. And I think that's where Cleveland's at. I think they are excited about the opportunity to show how much they've grown over the last year.
With a ball dominant small guard. That is
Yes.
The ball dominant small guard, but a very good point guard next to him. Like, they are fascinating, but what they're doing is winning games, which of course is the part that matters up to this point. But it is
Mobley's running the offense now. I mean, they're running a lot of stuff through Mobley now. So it's a little different than it's been the last couple of years, which is part of why they're crushing people, because Don's not on the ball as much. Garland's not on the ball as much. They're less ball dominant than they've been. They're running a lot of stuff through Evan now.
All right, I'm going to read something to you that I'm not sure if you have seen this from the Philadelphia Inquirer, but Joel Embiid could undergo meniscus replacement procedure, and it is a procedure where they break a bone in your hip to realign the joint and alleviate pressure, which sounds like this is a wrap. Not a wrap forever, but as dominant player.
We are at the stage with Joel where I'm not sure there's a good outcome physically for him. They already shaved the meniscus. They didn't take all of it out. It's not bone on bone. So that part is still salvageable. But they've tried everything, Bo. They've tried everything short of another surgery, right? Like, so, and it hasn't worked. He's still doesn't feel it. He's not feeling comfortable or healthy or good. And it's showing up when he plays. So if you're talking about another surgery or some sort of kind of more, I don't say radical, that's a loaded word, more experimental treatments, right? For a knee injury, you're almost grasping at straws. You're trying to find something, and there may not be something to find in this situation. He's a 7 foot, 280 pound human being. That's a lot of torque on that knee, and it's going to continue to be a lot of torque on that knee. And even if he loses 30 pounds, it's going to be a lot of torque on that knee. and the knee just may not be able to hold up. It's not, I think about Grant Hill, who was a great player before he got hurt. And then he was still a really good player after he got hurt, but he wasn't the same. And I think he's not going to be the same with Joel. Now, can you build a team around him? You can try, but it's harder. And so, it's not, I don't see a lot of good options here. It's not something where there's a procedure and in 6 months he'll be fine. I don't know that there's a procedure here that's going to help him, one that's going to help him go back to being Joel Embiid again. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know if I am.
I will say this just so you know, from the Inquirer story, one source called this procedure, quote, radical, unquote.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
okay, they can say radical.
Look, man, anytime it gets to the point where they talk about breaking stuff to fix it, ooh,
right.
ooh,
yeah.
Ooh.
No doubt. Absolutely. No, I mean, I've heard that, there's all kinds of different things that are on the table now, and if you shave it, it is bone on bone. Then it's Tim Hardaway Sr. and you're done. You can't play anymore. It's too painful. And so they want everything short of that. But when you talk about PRP injections and things like that, and we're going to give you a new meniscus, and I mean, the track record's not great for that, leading to full and complete restoration of one's greatness. There's not a lot of cases out there that point to that.
All right. I'm going to ask you one last thing before we get out of here. A team that I get the occasional look at, and they seem very fun, if nothing else. But where are you on the Detroit Pistons, who appear to be good for the first time in a very long time?
Look, I think it's great. I'm happy for them. They've gone through it.
Oh, when it starts like this, there's a butt coming.
There is a butt coming. I understand. You can't just keep like they were in year 5 of this thing. Well, just trust us. We're building through the draft. And people are like, guys, you're winning 12 games every year. Where's the good stuff? When does that happen? So look, I think Cade's gone to another level, and that's great. And you can be excited about that if you're them. And you can see that he's got the potential to be an all-league type player, like well worth being the first pick in the draft. So you got something there. But they did a lot of things in terms of bringing vets in who are still good players. But I'm not sure where this leaves them in 2 years. My question is, what does this team look like 2 years from now? Like, if you tell me Jaden Ivey's going to develop into a great player over the next 2 years, or you tell me Thompson's going to get there, okay. I'll rock with it. But they're not winning this year because of them. They're winning because of Cade and the vets. And the vets are just going to get older. So now maybe what happens, and this could happen, is somebody says, "Hey, Cade's pretty good. I want to go play with him." That could happen. Sure. There could be an all-star level player that says, Cade looks good to me. I don't want to be in this bad situation I'm in on my team. That looks like they're going places. Get me to Detroit. That could happen. Sure. Because that's what happens when you have great players. Other great players want to play with them. So that could happen. And maybe that's the play. And there's nothing wrong with that being the play, by the way. If that's your play, and that's how you're going to sustain this over the next 5 or 6 years, okay. Take the shot. It's okay. But this current team, this iteration of this team, I think it's a great story. And I'm happy for them because they've gone through it. They have gone through it. Like, you don't know what it's like to lose 28 games in a row. I can't even fathom that. Like, how do you even, like, that's horrendous. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm glad that they're having some success. I'm just not sure if it's sustainable success. That's all.
I just heard when you started off with, look. There's no greater tell than coming off the rip with, look.
I'm a terrible poker player, Bo. I'm really bad.
You're like, look, I hear you guys. Woo, we're going to the playoffs. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I know. It's been a long time. Yeah. I got you.
And they will have playoff games in Detroit, and it will be marvelous and good for them. And I hope they have a good crowd there. And I might even go to 1 or 2 of them because it'll be fun. And I'm happy for JB. JB's done a hell of a job. He's a really good coach. I thought he got a raw deal in Cleveland, and I'm glad he's getting an opportunity to show out that he's a really good coach and is doing a really good job. So I'm not saying it's wrong what they did. I'm not saying that at all. I understand it because you can't keep rolling out 12 and 60, 12 and 70 every year. That's
right.
Not,
you got to do something.
You got to do something.
You got to do something. Now, I'll say this, though. JB is in an interesting place with Cleveland where I thought Mark Jackson got a raw deal in Golden State, and then they went out there and won 67 games or 65 games or whatever it was. And that's kind of what's happened to JB. It was like, damn, how much better you think they're supposed to be? That's what you thought it was supposed to be. My bad. You remember that Joe Lacob? Like, yeah, I played golf with Steve Kerr. We're like, y'all ain't won 50 games in 20 years. Y'all gonna do this man like this? Really? But for Steve Kerr, he wasn't even that good in the broadcast booth. Man, they went out there and started whooping ass, and it was just like, Mark Jackson ain't got a job since. I was like, maybe you were right.
I can't object to anything you've said.
But the biggest winner in that was Derek Fisher, because Lacob gave Steve Kerr what was at the time a crazy $5 million. He never done anything, and then the Knicks hired Derek Fisher, and it felt like the league kind of told them, hey, go ahead and make it rain on him. And he got $5 million, and he was what we was thinking Steve Kerr was going to be. He was terrible.
True. It didn't work out for Derek.
It did not work out. And wasn't that the same year that Matt Barnes pulled up on him?
It was around that time. I don't know exactly what the sequencing, but it was around that time. Yes.
Yeah, man, that was there 2015. Okay, so it wasn't the same time because 2014 is when he got that job. But yeah brother, it was an interesting time, and that's why I'm glad it's going well for JB in Detroit, because otherwise, the Cavs would be an indictment of him.
Yeah, no, exactly. I know he's a good coach. I know he did a good job in Cleveland. Now maybe he was more reluctant to giving Mobley the ball, and they said that's what we got to do, and he resisted, and that's part of why they fired him. That could have happened, there's a million different things that went into it, but clearly they've unlocked something different with this year's team than in previous Cleveland teams. So,
what a time. That is David Aldridge. Check him out at The Athletic, covering the NBA and Washington, where you guys saw your quarterback, man. At the Super Bowl.
It's like the scene in The Wizard of Oz after the house fell in the Wicked Witch of the West. Now everything's in Technicolor. Everybody's just running around. You're out of the woods. Everybody's excited and happy now. It's unbelievable. It's incredible. The 180 I've never seen in 1 year, Bo. 1 year. The 180 that this franchise has undergone is just incredible. Right? It's unbelievable.
Well, brother, I appreciate you.
Thank you, Bo.
All right, now, and ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on The Right Time. We do this thing 3 times a week. That's Sean, you handling everything behind the scenes. Thank you, sir. Remember, check us out ad-free on Supercast. The Right Time is ad-free on Supercast, $5 a month. Also, special features like AMAs and more. Remember, follow The Right Time. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater, and we'll talk to you guys in a couple of days. Take it easy.